a late-night post blew up the whole of Japan. Xue Jian, the Chinese consul general in Osaka, used extreme language to threaten Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi. The Japanese government lodged a protest overnight. The United States and Taiwan joined in a three-way condemnation. Beijing, however, remained silent. This is not just a diplomatic mishap, but the comprehensive breakdown of the CCP's wolf warrior system. When diplomacy turns into a loyalty show competition and roaring replaces reason, what the world sees is not the confidence of a great power, but the fear of a regime. Don't miss the next drop, subscribe and hit the bell. Japan's political scene has suddenly exploded over the past 2 days. A diplomatic storm began with a late-night post. One vicious line touched the rawest nerve in China-Japan relations. Some say it wasn't a slip of the tongue but a provocation, others suspect it's no longer a diplomatic accident, but a deliberately released signal. Stranger still, behind this storm lies not only China-Japan relations, even the United States, Taiwan, and Israel have been dragged in. In just a few days, a single Chinese diplomat jolted the entire Indo-Pacific. What exactly did he say? Why would one sentence ignite Japanese fury, draw US condemnation, and meet Beijing's silence? Today, we start with this episode of Wolf Warrior Run Amok, a grand drama tearing off the CCP's diplomatic mask. Xue Jian goes off the rails, ignites a China-Japan storm. On November 7, Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi stated in the House of Representatives that if there is a contingency in Taiwan, it is highly likely to be recognized as a situation threatening Japan's survival. Late the night of November 8, Xue Jian, the Chinese consul general in Osaka, posted in Japanese on X, provocatively declaring that such a filthy head should be cut off without hesitation. He added an angry emoji. The post quickly set off an uproar across Japanese social media and political circles. Many Japanese believed it was a threat to the Prime Minister's life, extremely egregious in nature. Xue swiftly deleted the post and slunk away. On November 10, Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara told the regular press conference that Japan had issued a strong protest to the PRC, denouncing Xue's extremely inappropriate remarks, and warned that, as a Chinese consular official in Japan, he had multiple prior records of improper speech. Japan strongly demanded that Beijing handle the matter appropriately. The Chief Cabinet Secretary is the Cabinet Secretary General and spokesperson, the position second only to the Prime Minister. In addition, according to the Mainichi Shimbun and Yomiuri Shimbun on November 10, Masaki Kanai, Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau at Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, had already lodged a stern protest with the Chinese embassy in Japan on November 9. Fukushima Prefectural Assemblyman Kohei Watanabe posted a screenshot of Xue's post on X, saying it should be regarded as a declaration of warlike remarks and calling for Xue to be declared persona non grata under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and expelled. House of Representatives member Jean Matsubara, who has long criticized Xue and the Diet, also reposted the post, reiterating his repeated calls to expel Xue from Japan. Although Xue deleted the post that triggered public outrage, he continued to publish other incendiary remarks, such as, "A Taiwan contingency is a Japan contingency, this is the path of national death chosen by some foolish Japanese politicians," and he ranted that this violates the obligations Japan should fulfill as a defeated nation, adding, "Please, at least restore the minimum level of rationality and respect for law, do not suffer a national extinction akin to defeat." On November 10, China's ambassador to Japan Wu Jianghao also continued pushing Beijing's propaganda on X, claiming that Taiwan is China's internal affair, that how to resolve the Taiwan question is a matter for Chinese people alone, and threatening that trying to tie Japan to the chariot of splitting China will ultimately lead to a road of no return. PRC Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian declared on November 10 that Japan's leader had made wrong remarks concerning Taiwan, whose nature and impact are extremely vile, and that China is strongly dissatisfied and resolutely opposes them. Xue Jian previously served as a Deputy Director General in the PRC Foreign Ministry's Asian Affairs Department and, in November 2021, became Consul General in Osaka with ambassadorial rank. He has 97,000 followers on X and is known as a Wolf Warrior Ambassador. U.S. Taiwan, Israel, three-party condemnation. U.S. Ambassador to Japan George Glass criticized Xue on X, saying the post once again exposed his nature. Glass wrote, "His mask has slipped yet again. Just a few months ago, Xue compared Israel to Nazi Germany. Now he threatens Prime Minister Takaichi and the Japanese people. It's time for Beijing to act like the good neighbor they claim to be, instead of repeatedly saying one thing and doing another." Taiwan's presidential office spokesperson Olivia Lin Guoyahue stated on November 10 that the government is seriously concerned about the threatening language used by a PRC official toward Japan. Such behavior has obviously exceeded diplomatic etiquette. She said Taiwan will continue to work hand in hand with Japan and other international partners to safeguard security and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait and the Indo-Pacific region. Akamasa Yaida, a veteran Japanese media figure in Taiwan, believes Shue's use of extremely crude language on social media shows a complete lack of the reason and restraint expected of a diplomat and seriously damages China's international image. Yaida said the Japanese public's reaction has been unusually strong. The internet is full of angry voices. This isn't a personal opinion, it's the CCP's real thinking. A PRC diplomat issuing a life-threatening remark against Japan's prime minister is tantamount to a declaration of war against a sovereign state, and this person already constitutes a threat to Japan's national security. Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara stated clearly on November 10 that Xue Jian, as a Chinese diplomat, has had multiple prior negative incidents in Japan. On February 24, 2022, Xue wrote in Japanese on Twitter, "There is one big lesson from the Ukraine issue: the weak must never commit the foolish act of picking fights with the strong. Even if a strong party somewhere backs you or promises support, the same applies. Furthermore, don't pull chestnuts out of the fire, don't take risks for others' interests." This is the CCP's brigand logic at its core. As long as you have a big enough fist, you can bully the weak at will. Xue used the Russia-Ukraine war as clickbait to lecture Japan, implying that Japan is a small country, weaker than the PRC, and must submit beneath Beijing's feet. Xue's bandit-style remarks don't stop there. He once pressured Kobe City Councilor Norihiro Yuhata, threatening him not to attend President Lai Ching-te's inauguration in Taiwan. Yuhata's surname uses the kanji, pronounced like sweet. On November 1, Yuhata posted on X, revealing that before President Lai's inauguration, Xue had sent a letter to the Kobe mayor requesting that councilors not attend the ceremony. Yuhata pointed out he was the only Kobe councilor invited to Lai's inauguration, so Xue was clearly targeting him. On June 13 this year, Israel launched a surprise strike on Iran. The next day, Xue posted on X with a graphic placing the Nazi German flag side by side with the Israeli flag, attempting to imply that Nazis and Israel are birds of a feather, and even maliciously sought to drive a wedge between the US and Israel, saying, "Nazis saw the US as an enemy, Israel sees the US as an ATM." Israel's ambassador to Japan Gilad Cohen condemned Xue, saying his behavior had seriously crossed the line, shameless and blatant anti-Semitism, extremely dangerous. US Ambassador George Glass also joined in, saying Xue displayed shocking anti-Semitism, ignorance, and vulgarity, and that rather than a wolf warrior diplomat, he was an untrained dog. Xue even meddled in Japan's domestic politics, openly canvassing for the left-wing party Reiwa Shinsengumi. On October 25, 2024, ahead of Japan's House of Representatives election, Xue posted on X, "Please write the two characters, Reiwa, on the proportional representation ballot nationwide." The post included an animation of party leader Taro Yamamoto's street speech, openly campaigning for the opposition party Reiwa Shinsengumi. Xue has also lectured Japanese netizens. In December 2024, a Japanese netizen claiming to teach at a vocational college in Sichuan commented under Xue's post on X, saying that after nearly 26 years in China teaching comparative culture, he felt that even students at China's top universities are indifferent to the different cultures within their own country. The comment angered Xue, who responded with a long post, claiming many Japanese, especially intellectuals like you, always assume a superior, civilized posture in front of their Asian neighbors, particularly Chinese, and, relying on a smattering of knowledge and conjecture, judge China's internal affairs. All you know how to do is whine about China, nitpicking in dark corners, continuing to play the role of the heckler throwing rotten eggs from the audience. Xue seemed to forget that 2 months earlier he had been whining about Japan. Beyond the bully and wolf warrior masks, Xue also has an unexpected side. Reports say that on X he apparently once followed a yoga influencer, prompting many Chinese netizens to tease him in the comments. From personal gaffes to systemic illness. In fact, it isn't just the PRC's envoy to Japan losing his composure. PRC diplomats abroad frequently do so. It has become the norm of CCP diplomacy. In October this year, PRC ambassador to New Zealand Wang Xiaolong wrote to several New Zealand MPs to scold them for attending Taiwan's National Day reception. On November 10, Hung Pu-chao, deputy executive director of Tunghai University Center for China and Asia-Pacific Studies, wrote that these diplomatic missteps are a mirror reflecting how the CCP exports a political language that replaces communication with control and replaces respect with obedience. Hung argues that the recent gaffes in PRC diplomacy are not accidents but a natural extension of the CCP's systemic logic. For example, in August this year, when President Yoon's special envoy Park Byung-suk visited China, he was told to control anti-China sentiment in South Korea and to take measures to prevent such speech from spreading. For a democracy, this goes beyond diplomatic persuasion. It is interference in another sovereign state's affairs and in freedom of expression. Earlier, the PRC's ambassador to France, Liu She, famous for wolf warrior diplomacy, repeatedly insulted foreign leaders and even declared Taiwan is a rebel regime and that Taiwanese must be re-educated, crudely trampling on international norms and triggering an outcry in France. PRC diplomats' imperative tone toward democratically elected governments isn't because they don't understand diplomatic rules, it's because Beijing's domestic governance model is being exported. At home, the CCP can muzzle media and force public opinion to obey. Abroad, it issues orders telling other governments what to say and think. This is the CCP's habitual mindset, a projection of its system. In the CCP's political world, diplomats are first-party cadres and only then representatives of the state. Their primary training is not to understand other countries but to obey the center. Slogans like "maintain a firm fighting spirit" and "never let China suffer" are essentially extensions of domestic governance thinking. Domestically, the CCP treats stability above all as dogma. Externally, it presumes obedience to Beijing as the baseline. Hence, Wang Xiaolong scolds New Zealand MPs, because in his world, scolding is the language of management. Park Byung-suk is told to handle anti-China sentiment, because in the PRC system, public opinion should be controlled. Liu She can run wild in Europe, because he is used to speaking in a system without dissent. Therefore, this domestic logic spillover is the institutional pathology of PRC diplomacy. Diplomacy should be dialogue between states. Under the CCP system, it has become outward-facing political loyalty performance. Every wolf warrior moment by a PRC diplomat is a public political show. Whoever is harsher and louder can better prove loyalty upward. Diplomacy is no longer a professional task, it is an intra-party competition. The wolf warrior diplomacy mindset reflects PRC diplomats' inner psychology. On the one hand, their own political and economic interests, on the other, fear of internal CCP politics. A system that cannot tolerate dissent at home cannot tolerate different voices abroad. When stability becomes the only correctness, diplomacy must also maintain stability, not maintain relationships, but maintain authority. Beijing may think wolf warriors project the image of a confident great power, but the result is the opposite. New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters's line, "I'll help him better understand the nature of democracy," is more symbolic than any formal protest. Democracies won't be cowed by threats or reshaped by lectures. The backlash in South Korea against controlling anti-China sentiment and Europe's mockery of Liu She all send the same message: the CCP's bandit diplomacy only further isolates itself. A regime that dare not face its own public opinion, how can it possibly engage the world as an equal? Shui's post has pushed China-Japan relations to a saber-rattling brink, precisely because the CCP cannot engage Japan on equal footing. Its thinking toward Japan remains stuck in the past. From Japan's rebirth to the CCP's impasse. Chinese scholar Lu Juning argues that post-war Japan underwent a near-phoenix-like rebirth. Before World War II, Japanese thought indeed went astray. Before the Meiji Restoration, the Japanese embraced currents from Europe's Enlightenment, including German authoritarianism, militarism, rationalism, evolutionism, and human rights. After the Restoration, these strands in Japanese history either had no future, or France's Enlightenment led Japan further off course. Japan launched and joined the Second World War, invaded its neighbors, and embarked on a militarist path, ending in defeat. However, after World War II, Japan underwent a major ideological shift and introduced new sources of thought. General Douglas MacArthur invited American constitutional experts to draft Japan's new constitution. Much of it drew from Britain and the United States. He introduced the principle of divine order, a 5,000-year tradition, into Japan, what Liu calls the masterpiece of that principle in the Far East. MacArthur realized that abolishing the emperor would create a massive vacuum. Once a vacuum appears, uncertain forces rush to fill it. If not filled by one's own camp, worse outcomes might follow. So he decided to retain the imperial institution. MacArthur described himself as a soldier of God. A professional soldier, conservative, Republican, and devout believer in the Lord, his creed was, "God bless America." Japan's long-ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, was formed on November 15, 1955, from a merger of the Liberal Party and the Democratic Party. The liberal, in its name, refers to private sector economics and politically to conservative liberalism. The LDP advocates democratic politics, a free economy system, revising the pacifist constitution, upholding the U.S. Japan Security Alliance, strengthening autonomous defense, and, with the U.S. Japan Alliance as the axis, actively expanding diplomatic outreach. Long-term LDP rule laid the conservative foundation of Japanese politics. Post-war Prime Minister Shigeru Yoshida's fundamental stance was to cooperate fully with the United States and entrust security to it. U.S. Japan cooperation is the cornerstone of Japan's diplomacy. Ostensibly standing with American interests, in essence it is standing with American values. Therefore, to understand today's Japan, one must understand the American founding spirit and American values. It is also for this reason that President Trump and Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi hit it off and had a pleasant, congenial conversation.